Okay, so I'm going to start talking about Instant JChem and how we're using it at Evotec to link our chemistry and our biology data together for our different projects. I'm going to rattle through this fairly quickly. Take that one back, yeah, that's a good idea. So this is kind of the agenda. I think I've got about 10 minutes to talk through this, so I should go fairly fast. So our setup for IJC at Evotec, at the moment we've got the enterprise license to use it, both on the desktop, but also to use it with our Oracle cartridges and databases and things like that. And that is the route that we're trying to go, is we're going down the, try and centralize all the databases rather than having lots of different sort of local databases on everyone's desktop, which sort of proliferation of things like we have with some of our ISIS things, databases, but having them all central so that we can control them and we can make sure that people are using the right schemas and things like that, and storing data sensibly so we can do a bit more management. So the project data flow, at the moment we have two main sites that are using this: Abingdon, which is mostly chemistry, and Hamburg, which is a screening services. So what happens is that in Abingdon we got the medicinal chemistry, ADMET, and compound registration data that goes into our IJC databases. And from Hamburg, assay data, counter assays, and in vivo data all go into the same setup. What we're doing is we're setting up one of these for each of our client projects so that we don't have any kind of overlap between what data we have for our different clients, and they know that we're ensuring that their data is secure and safe from everybody. So the data model we've decided to adopt comes partly from the SD files that we're importing, and then obviously using the cartridge index type of tables rather than JChem tables. Just that's the way we like to work. And then within IJC, we're using the relationships, indexes, edges, and what have you to build up the data tree, linking all these tables on the corporate, our corporate ID for all of our compounds, and then adding users as required. So that's kind of the idea. And this, if you can read that, is a view of how the data model works. So we've got some assay tables. We've got the laser pointer thing. So gone in your areas. So we've got some assay tables here, and then we've got some structure data table fields over here where we've got stuff up with the calculators and some of the other options we've got. And then for the SAR data tables, we've got the structures linked to one-to-many bioassay data results and one-to-N ADMET assay data results. The ADMET coming from the UK and the bioassay from Hamburg. So again, for the users, what they see is they see this, the table here, which is the cartridge index structure table, followed by a sort of non-structured biology assay table from the Opera system. And then below here, some of the SAR tables with the connected tables, so you can linking the chemistry and the biology data, so they can view through these views and forms and what have you, actually access the data and what's going on. And then we've got some of these other data tables for the ADMET stuff, for the different ADMET, for the different assay types that we've got in the UK, and then we've got this other calculations table, which will link to some of the Oracle views, which I'll talk about later. That's how we're using Oracle views to get access to some more types of data and calculations. So this is some of the forms that we've set up. I think we've hidden the structures so that, because they're probably client structures or something like that. And it's a pretty normal form, really, I think. The only interesting bit here is this picture here, which is a dynamic URL, and we had some interesting times getting that working, and one of the things I'll explain later on is how we got that working so that it can be useful for other people. But it's a normal standard form, really. So looking at our user security, so we're looking, we've set up, because only people who are on the project are allowed to see it, because a project is specific for a client, therefore we can't let them see other clients' data in many ways. So we've set up the user management through Instant JChem, and this is a typical project would have a few scientists on it with only a read-only role, and then some administrators who can do absolutely everything, and then some scientists who have edit data roles. So they're usually the project managers or the senior scientists within the group on both sides, in both sides of the group. So 2 in Abingdon, perhaps 2 in Hamburg. And this allows people to add and edit data and read the data from their desktop, which is really nice. It's a much improved than our ISIS approach that we had before. Okay, so deployment. We're using the shared URLs, so we give people access. For example, this is just for screening libraries. Give people access to the views you want to be able to see, and then just share the configuration files through just a normal website. So we've just got some websites. We call ours eScience with IJC in it, and then they can load that project up into IJC, which is installed on every desktop. So they can always use it wherever they are and access what they need to do. Okay, so integrating Oracle views. So this is probably a bit more interesting, a bit more techy, I'm afraid. So one of the things that we wanted to do was, for example, calculate ligand efficiency using this nice formula here. I'm a computer scientist, so I don't understand a word of what this is doing. But so I'll pray-see that before I try and explain what we ended up doing. So that's a description of what the field is. But the problem was that in our tables, then actually this IC50 unit came from an assays opera table, and then the non-H atom count came from our structure table. So the way we actually did this calculation was we created a new view in the Oracle database. So this is using Oracle functions, using create replace view from using the select statement to do the calculation. And then within IJC, we actually promoted that to being a new entity, and then that allowed us to display it and put it onto the form and be able to show it for the users to see it already calculated and already done. And if you change, obviously, the values within any of these two tables, then it automatically updates being a view, because a view is just a view, a way of looking at the data. So the other thing we did was the images. And one of the problems that there is, IJC is pretty good, but there are a couple of issues occasionally. One of the problems is that using dynamic URL fields on data import tables is not currently available. So what we did, we created a workaround, which is probably talking to Tim and getting Tim's advice on this, using Oracle views. So basically, when we update data in table A, for example, the IC50s, IDs or file names or whatever, we create an Oracle view using the compound ID and the file name. So the compound ID is the linking key. And then get that to be a new entity within the IJC schema, which we're going to call table B. So we create a dynamic link on table B rather than the one we're going to update regularly by using the root path on and then plus table B.filename for where the image is or whatever it is you want to show. And then create the one-to-one relationship between tables A and B, etc. So that means that you can get your dynamic link automatically updating when you load in new data, but also not have it overwritten, which is what some of the problems are at the moment, I think. So now we can do the imports onto table A without affecting that and get the images which are hosted on some web server somewhere within Evotec and show them in your forms, which is really great. It'll be even better at some point once we've got graphing tools within IJC that we can generate this graph automatically. But for now, while we've got this sort of captured out of whatever application it's come from, then it's good that we can show it on the screen for the users to see it and benefit from that information. And that's roughly it. So the few conclusion points that I have is that IJC for us is really good. It's giving us a good way of getting rid of ISIS, which is quite nice. And we're also using it in new ways all the time to store and share both our chemistry and our biology data, which is making people talk to each other a bit better between chemistry and biology, which is always nice. But also it's good for the client because they can see that we've got all the data in one place. Some of the things that we would like to work on in the future and what we'd like Tim to work on in the future. So some of the things we're doing is integrating our own calculators and methods into Marvin and IJC. So we're working on either doing it as plugins or as calculator methods. We'd love to have new ways of displaying results, so built-in graphing tools and things like that. I know quite a few the competitors to the IJC thing are going down this route where they want to have aggregated searches and lots of ways of displaying data. So I think it's probably the way that IJC's got to go. Yeah, user-dependent permissions on viewing and editing entities. So that's a bit more control down to who is allowed to edit what on the entity. And then something we asked for last year and is still not there is our big red button which says, from your central database, create me a local database so I can then give that to my client. And they can then access their data without having to come into our systems and things like that, but they can have an instant download of what data we have about their compounds. So a few thank yous as we've done these talks over 3 sessions now. The people who have been involved are people in my team, the science team, Michael in computational chemistry had the poster, and there's a few guys in Hamburg. And then also thanks to the Chemaxon developers for producing very good products, and Tim Dudgeon for all his help supporting us with getting Instant JChem working as well as it is in Evotec. Thank you very much.
Yes, quick question.
I'm sorry, is it on?
Yes.
You probably dealt with this yesterday.
Okay.
Forgive me if so. You've got these separate project databases.
Yes, separate schemas.
At some stage, presumably, you need to archive those and make sure that you haven't got molecule A in this database and in that database. So now, you did touch on this yesterday.
So that's what our CCD application is, which is our corporate chemical database, corporate compound database, depending on who you talk to. That is our registration system. So all compounds that we make for our clients go into there, irrespective of who the clients are. And that's where we do overlap searches and make sure we're not sending out, before anything can leave the company, it has to go into here and make sure we've not sent it to somebody else before, so we capture it there.
The question still stands, how do you get the stuff from the IJC databases into the...
There's no link at the moment. At the moment, it's just a project database for them to dump all their data and make sure they can see the screening results for their compounds and things like that. So yeah, there's things with that's also probably future work, is to link it into the CCD and things like that.
Okay, there's another question.
Is that all right?
Can you give an estimated effort as to what it took to get the ISIS-based forms into the current product, into IJC? How many forms did you do, and how much effort was it to?
So we weren't actually translating ISIS stuff directly into this. This is completely new. We started from scratch. We said, right, we're not going to try and translate anything. And
right. So you had something, at least something that you could see beforehand. Then you had to replicate.
Yeah. So we had some. Yeah, we had some. We have a few. We have, I think, one ISIS host installation, which was mostly for the biology data, not for the chemistry data. We said, look, let's try and use IJC on this. We used it on one project, and it was quite successful. So then we've moved it to other projects. And once what we use it doing is using the same schema for all projects. So as soon as, if we want a new one now, we just copy the forms, we copy the schema, we copy everything across into the new project, or the new schema in the database, and then link it all up, and it all works.
So you're basically using a common schema across projects, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But it's different schemas within the database, if that makes sense.